Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. I'm Siddharth Varadarajan and my guest today for our discussion is Mr. Vu Xuan Hong, important visitor from Vietnam, currently in Delhi attending a conference on India-Vietnam relations. You are, sir, a member of the National Assembly of Vietnam, a member of its Foreign Relations Committee, and of course president of the Vietnamese Union of Friendship Organizations. So you have vast experience and knowledge of Vietnam's relations with other countries, and that's what we hope to discuss in this show. Thank you very much for joining us on Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you so very much for giving me this great honor and opportunity to talk to you and through the respected Indian audience.
Let's start with the recent important political events in your country. We had the 12th Congress of the Communist Party of Vietnam that was held, and the new leadership of the country was in a way decided. Party General Secretary is carrying on for a second term. But can you give our viewers a sense of the kind of new challenges that the Vietnamese leadership addressed or tried to confront in the party congress? What are the kind of issues that came up, and what sort of decisions were taken to resolve the new challenges or new problems that Vietnam faces?
You know, the Communist Party of Vietnam, which is the ruling party in Vietnam, was founded by Ho Chi Minh. And it has a very long history of 80 years of existence. And it is leading force for the Vietnamese people in our struggling for national independence, liberation from foreign invaders, and reunification of country. The war between Vietnam and the United States of America was ended 40 years ago. And after the war, this party continued to take leading role in overcoming consequences of the war and to build the Vietnam into new period, the post-war and peaceful period of the construction. And that is the party which start the renewal process. That is renovating everything in Vietnam, changing mentality, way of thinking, and begin with deep economic developments and base ourselves on economic developments.
This is the Doi Moi.
Doi Moi, that is Doi Moi renovation, yeah. Based ourselves on economic development, we shall take as a measure to take our country to the future, to fulfill the dream of millions and millions of Vietnam for the future of the Vietnam. And 12th Congress is every 5 years we have one term. And this Congress is very important for Vietnam because it's look back on 30 years of the renovation process. The policy that we start with the multilateral sector of economy, the states go by the law with the socialist orientation, market economy with the socialist orientation, and deregulation of the labor, of the production. And the results of these 30 years is tremendous. Achievement at the great in all the field. For example, from very poor country, we are second rice exporter, first in coffee exporter. Vietnamese, the life originally in grassroots level, but 25 times is better than before, after the war time. And the poverty reduction from 66% after the war, now it is only 9%. And all these achievements are saying that this party is able to let our country to go ahead. And of course, with the new process of our development, we are facing a lot of new challenges.
In the realm of politics, we've seen in some former socialist countries, there was an attempt to create a multi-party system. Gorbachev spoke of glasnost and so on. Then you have the Chinese model where the Communist Party of China's leading role is not under question. There's no discussion about having any change in that. What are the Vietnamese discussions on the pros and cons of having a full-fledged multi-party system in your country? Is that a goal that you look forward to in the future, or will the leading role of the CPV continue indefinitely?
We think the CPP can and has to continue this role. We shall be very open-minded, looking on the world development and adapting ourselves to the world integration. Situation in Vietnam is very specific. We have to fight with the 4 from 5 permanent members of the Security Council of United Nations in our own country to preserve our dignity and to defend our independence. Only Russia left. Okay? We never want to make war with anybody, but when we were insist to fight, so we continue to fight, and all these things under leadership of the party. And now the sympathy of the population is on the side of the party. But each party will not exist as a ruling party if it not make many reforms on democratization of its own structure, on the way of the guidance, on the way of leadership. It should stay far from concrete administrative and executive and independent from juridical branches in Vietnam. So we try to find our own way, from one hand to enhance the leadership of the party, from another hand to open our society to the world integration process. And so far we are successful. And the multi-party system is not the way so far we are looking for. The way now is to modernize this ruling party, reform this party to make it really representative of the nation, of the interests of the country, to face the challenges in our new development.
In the run-up to the party congress, there was a lot of speculation among scholars and Vietnam watchers in America and Australia, in the West, that the party was likely to choose leaders who would be more, shall we say, pro-West, more reform-oriented, and that there would be some attempt to put greater distance between Vietnam and China. Finally, it seems as if the Congress opted for continuity. The leadership carried on, and the speculation proved to be wrong. But give us a sense of the discussions at the Congress. Were these issues that the Congress delegates debated, that there is need for greater reform, or what we are doing is enough, we need to rethink Vietnam's foreign policy with China and the US? Were these issues which were debated, or was it just a figment of outside scholars and outside speculation?
I think that everybody has their own opinions depending on the way they observe situation, their political stand, etc., etc. We appreciate very much, and we are listening to all this rumor or speculation. But situation in Vietnam is looking a little bit different. If you look on our history, on our tradition, our culture, the manner of the party, and democratization process going on in the party. I think that this party congress was very successful in terms of making new proposal to continue process of renovation, and that is for sure. The Vietnamese policy in foreign affairs will be consistent like before. It is independent policy. It diversifies our relations. We try to be friend of everybody in the world. Vietnam will not pro-China, not pro-West, or pro-anybody. We shall remain the same Vietnamese in our country to decide our problems. So if you see the resolution of the Congress in terms of foreign policy, it will continuity. But we shall have more and more active participation to the world and regional affairs, taking our responsibility as political player in the area, especially with the establishment of the ASEAN community, and to face the new challenges in our area, as well as to build Vietnam for the future. So I don't think it's correct to say that there is some branches in Vietnam pro-Chinese, some branches pro-Americans. Vietnam will not and never be ally of one big power to against another big power. We try to make good relation with everybody.
If I turn now to India-Vietnam relations, it's clear that over the last decade, and in particular the last 3 or 4 years, both Hanoi and New Delhi have tried to intensify their cooperation. There's been more high-level visits. We saw Indian companies involved in the exploration of hydrocarbons in Vietnamese waters. We've seen talk of defense cooperation. I know that India is also keen to explore the export of civilian nuclear technology to Vietnam. There are lots of areas of fruitful cooperation. And there is a history also,
Yes.
which goes, of course, everybody in India of a certain age remembers the heroic war, the heroic struggle of the Vietnamese people against the French and against the Americans. And there was complete support in this country for the Vietnamese War of
My name is
Liberation.
Vietnam, your name is Vietnam.
Exactly.
Vietnam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is a past going back even further. Could you, and you've presented a paper at this conference on this, could you tell us a little about how far back the India-Vietnam relationship, as it were, goes? And what form
if
did
you
it
look
take?
back on history of relation between Vietnam and India, especially on cultural context, it is amazing. It is very unique and very exclusive. From very first century, the Vietnamese culture already has very contact with the Indian the culture. Indian traders, Indian monks come to Vietnam, to Southeast Asia, settle their life, and giving their advanced knowledge at that time to Vietnamese. And influence of Buddhism, Hinduism begin to make in Vietnam in very, very beautiful way, not like other assimilation policy of some other countries. So it is maybe by nature, we are approaching each other very easily. And that is a heritage of our culture that you can find in Cham Kingdom, in the Phu Nam Kingdom, southern Vietnam, and in Đại Việt, it is North Vietnam today. So I think that it is more than 200 Indian temples still there existing. Some were already rebuilt and making worship every day. And that is a heritage that we are both very proud of. And we see that it is great opportunity for Vietnamese culture to accept, to adapt the excellent feature of Indian culture to our life and make our culture richer. Today, you know, this tradition was formulated by Ho Chi Minh and Nehru. And the coming generation, a little bit later on, also take care of this relation. India had Vietnam laws during the period of after the war at the time. I still remember how we enjoyed the rice from India at that time to help us when everywhere after the war was a problem with famine. So that kind of thing is deeply in our heart, in our mind. So it is why we have decided with the time being 9 years ago to establish our strategic partnership. So Vietnam has this kind of strategic partnership with only few countries in the world. And India is one of the first countries. And to use all these things for the cooperation between our two countries. Last visit of our leader, we try to see what we can do more on this field business from India to come to invest in Vietnam. We can see what we can do together to open our direct flight, to have better cooperation in the business sector in Vietnam. Military cooperation is, of course, is very good. We are very grateful for the India policy on the South China Sea, on the situation in our area. And I think that it's very important for us to keep all this on the track and have new idea, new initiative, new thing that government can help business people from both sides to work together.
You know, when ONGC Videsh, Indian Oil Company, signed an agreement and began to explore for hydrocarbons in Vietnamese waters, and there were Chinese objections. Of course, the government must have anticipated that China would react that way, the Indian government. But I think that was the first time that many ordinary people in India became aware of the South China Sea dispute and the fact that the Chinese have claims on waters that you insist belong to Vietnam. What kind of a role do you think outside countries like India, but also the United States or Russia, could play in ensuring that, as a first step, the South China Sea status quo is maintained, that the freedom of navigation for shipping is preserved, and that there are no military incidents that ever occur? Is there a role that outside countries can play, or is this best resolved by, as the Chinese say, countries at a bilateral level?
I think that the question of the South China Sea is dealing with many problems, not only bilateral relation between Vietnam and China, or between China with Philippines or Indonesia or some ASEAN member states. It is complex of problem that we have to work together to solve this thing, to guarantee free navigation, as you say, free trade, the flow, which is very busy in this area, to keep peace, stability in the region. And it's an important thing to recognize the effectiveness of the international law, like UNCLOS in 1982. We should work as the responsible player in the present international and regional situation. Not because before I was something, today I'm the rich and big, I take everything, it is belong to me. No, I think that it is not correct policy. So Vietnam policy is not going with Russia, not going with America, or with our friend in India to against the China. We are working for justice, we are working for the peace, we are working for international law practice. And as the member of United Nations, all we have to respect all these things, So of course we shall work in many levels. If there is dispute between Vietnam and China, we shall work on bilateral way. But if it is in Philippines should work with China, or maybe if they are not agree with that, they can put more initiative. But here we would like to call attention, understanding and support from neighboring countries, from big power like America, like India, like Russia, like ASEAN states, together with us to solve this question, to make international pressure to solving this question in peaceful way.
Now the Philippines decided to take the route of international arbitration, which the Chinese are very upset about. Is that something that Vietnam would also consider, that there is a mechanism under the law of the sea for there to be arbitration? Is this a route that Hanoi might
we
look
have
at?
also sent documentation to the case to ask the arbitrage to consider Vietnamese interest. So partially it means that we are in this process lightly. Of course we shall find many another way to work directly with China, but there are involvement of many countries also, and ASEAN as bloc member states has this problem with China, should stand their voice also to work with China. So here we can work in many different levels, internationally, regionally, and in bilaterally.
Vietnam fought a war with China. You mentioned, as you say, with 4 permanent members of the Security Council. The last member that you had a war with was with the Chinese in 1979. How wary is Vietnam today of the possibility of military confrontation with China? Or do you think that that is a closed chapter now, and that the Chinese side will not resolve to use force against Vietnam in the future?
Vietnam and China has also very rich tradition of friendship, solidarity in the past. And now with the new development of China, so many other things occur that we have, like neighboring countries, to work and decide together. We have good experience to decide the question of the border on the land, and demarcation of the border on the land was done. We have divided the Tonkin Gulf. It is also very rich experience, and I really do hope that with the full understanding of the world situation and considering interests of other nations, China will go by right way with respecting the international law, considering interests of other nations, and not making this region become the tension hotspot of the world situation. We don't want to have any war with anybody. It's enough for Vietnam. But you know our determination, because the border, the question, the sea, sovereignty, it is sacred issues that you cannot be betrayed. That is the problem. So from one hand, we shall determine to defend our sovereignty, our interests, our territorial integrity. From other hand, we try to our best to secure the peace, the stability, and peaceful solution of the problem.
Right. One of the remarkable transformations in international relations, as it were, is the relationship between the US and Vietnam. Here are two countries that fought a very bloody war. Vietnam was a victim of, many believe, American war crimes. And despite that legacy of great suffering, bitterness, great tragedy, today relations between Hanoi and Washington, D.C. Are very good. And you work together in a range of issues. You're one of the few countries that are part of the TPP, as you mentioned. And the Chinese fear that Vietnam and the US are working in tandem to encircle China, as it were. Have the historical issues, the historical resentment and grievances vanished completely, or is there still a wound in the heart of many Vietnamese people about when they think about the past? Have you successfully managed to move beyond that, or is it still a factor in the relationship?
You know, the American war in Vietnam is very prolonged war. It is terrible war. Americans have used all kind of weapons except only nuclear weapons in Vietnam. And our weapons used in Vietnam is 3 times more than all weapons Allies have used during the Second World War. 3 million Vietnamese people were killed. 4 million people are wounded.
I visited the museum in Hanoi. It's a very moving experience.
But here I think that what we have in last 20 years, we are celebrating last year 20th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relation and normalization between two countries. Is of course efforts of the both sides. But here once more we are in the seminar on cultural heritage and cultural relation. It is also tradition and cultural the characteristic of Vietnamese. When we have to fight, we fight until the end. But there is any possibility to negotiate, to end the conflict, to save the life of the soldier and people from both sides, we also go by this way. And after each conflict, we try to do our best to turn the former enemy to our partner. And that is the same with America. You will say, what the relation between Vietnam and Japan today, Vietnam, South Korea today, Vietnam and France, and German, and Great Britain, and all ASEAN states like before support American war. So that is tradition and way of Vietnam. You would never can forget that this terrible war still wound everywhere, in every family in Vietnam. But because of tradition, of the culture, because our dream for the future, we are working with former enemies, including America, to be good friends and good partner for today. So that is the result of the common efforts from both sides. But I see here it's a very important the cultural heritage and tradition of Vietnamese nation. We are strong enough not to forget, but to put it behind us and looking for the future. And that is natural process, taking already 40 years after the war, 20 years after normalization. Not today, when Americans switch their policy to the Asia Pacific. So it is the wrong perception and opinion that we are going with America to against China, or we are tying our friendship with India to against somebody else.
Right.
I don't think that it is a correct opinion.
On that note, Mr. Hong, we're completely out of time, but thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much. I would like to say that how we Vietnamese love India, admire your country, and in depth of your nation. And we shall do our best in any capacity, in personal capacity, in the leadership capacity, in grassroots level, to cherish this friendship and this cooperation. Let us use all resources, what you have in our hands, to do that like a example of cooperation for the new time of development of India and Vietnam.
Right, sir.
Thank you so much for this time.
On that wonderful note, we will have to end this program. Thank you so much for joining us on Indian Standard Time. Do join us again next week with another guest.